Hi, I'm Sean Dunn, and welcome to this episode of Origin to Ambition, the Entrepreneur's Journey. Today I speak with Colin Wilson, co-owner and co-founder, in partnership with his lovely wife Lorraine, of Key Business Advisors. Colin is passionate about helping businesses grow successfully and sustainably. He shares several insights today. It's fascinating to talk to, very interesting discussion today. So I do invite you to listen on and enjoy this episode of Origin to Ambition. Welcome to Origin to Ambition, the show where we explore the small business entrepreneur's journey in business. I'm your host, Sean Dunn. Let's get into it. Colin Wilson, thank you very much for joining me today on Origin to Ambition. I really appreciate your time. So thanks for being here.
Pleasure. Glad I'm part of the process. Yep, part of the plan. Yep, good.
No, I appreciate it. I know you're probably doing me a bit of a favour. You're a busy bloke, and maybe I've lent into how long I've known you for that you found the time for me, so I do appreciate it. Listen, can you take us through your business and a bit of your background before the business, just for our listeners, just to see how, where you came from and then how you ended up with your business and what your business is and does?
Yeah, so Key Business Advisors was, it started in February of 2008, so we're 17 years of age. There's four parts to our business. We're all about business strategy and growth. We're about people and culture. We're an outsourced HR business for many small, medium-sized businesses, particularly associations and the franchisees. And we do a lot of training. So we do a lot of, training around leadership management, customer service and sales training. So it's quite spread, but, each team member of our business, we play to their strengths and, we're growing. So, started off Lorraine, my wife and myself, many, many years ago. And, now it's developed into, as a team of 12, and we'll probably end up a team of 15 by this time next year because we're on a very big growth spurt at the moment, which is absolutely fantastic. So that's how that's our business of today. My background is actually, as you know, like you, mate, I did a bit of ballroom dancing in the day, and I never regret any of that because that has really, I just did a keynote speaking gig over the last few days. And that performance on stage just does not change, right? So, so at the age of, I think it was about 17 and a half, I got into the workforce, into the office technology industry as a sales cadet. That's what I did. So I never went off and did a degree or anything like that. My parents separated, and it was a case of survive and thrive. And so I got into a wonderful industry, which was the office technology industry, which I loved. And I started off as a sales cadet. So my very first few years was cold calling the streets of Melbourne. Start at 1 Colin Street, go to the top of the building and do a drop off of a brochure and a letter to all the way to the bottom and go to the next building. And so I did that from like 1 till 4 every day. And then the next morning from 9 till or 8:30 till 12, I'd be on the phone ringing them. Did they receive the information? And did they want to see a salesperson? So that's where I started. And then, I spent 22 years in that.
That can be a tough, a tough way to learn.
It was a huge, tough way to learn. But can I say, that's why I am today. Like, many business owners go into business and they might have a skill or a passion, but, sales is the blood of every business. And if you don't know how to sell your business, you don't know how to get out there and generate that revenue stream, then that makes it really difficult. So that was ingrained in me at a young age. And that, took me to many places in my career in the office technology world. So again, we didn't have the marketing back then that you have today, or the social posts or anything like that. It was all, that old hardcore grainy stuff that you had to do. So that's where I started. And then I eventually got myself a territory, started selling office equipment. And then over a 22-year period, I moved a few organizations, worked with some unbelievable people. And I ended up becoming a manager myself. And when I was a manager, actually, I was a bit of a tough gig because I never had any training. I was sort of thrown in the deep end. But I used to write down what worked, what didn't work, and I used to throw it into an A4 empty paper box, right? So when you buy a ream of paper or buy a box of paper.
Yep.
So when I went to come and start my businesses, I had 5 of those boxes of just good notes of stuff that I did. And then what happened was we went into business. So my wife and I tried to get, 3 people to come into business with me, and they didn't want to, too scared, very nervous. And my wife said to me one day, I'll back you. Let's go. Let's just do it. So crazy as it was, 2 young kids, a brand new house, that we built, the Taj Mahal. So we didn't do the upgrade. And the upgrade, we went from the first home to the big Taj Mahal. And then 2 investment properties in town. And it was the stupidest decision of all time, but we did it because we just thought we're not going to look back on this. And
can I jump in?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So what prompted the idea to say, well, I've got a job and now I'm doing the entrepreneur. Now I know you're in sales, but as in you shifted to being an entrepreneur business owner. What was the pivotal moment or the prompt that made you go down that path?
Yeah, so I always wanted to be a trainer. That was, in the office technology world, they had, a lot of in-house trainers. They were great trainers. And I thought, well, that's me. I can train. I love to facilitate. That's what I like to do. And that just goes back to, the dancing world, running the dance studio that we had, you facilitating. So that's what I wanted to do. That was my passion. And what happened was I worked for an organization where, it was Konica Minolta, two brands merged as one. And, become very disgruntled and become, an environment that, at the time was going through a lot of change. It's something I struggled with, if that makes sense. So, I just happened to come across a HR company called HR Coach. It's now called HR Coach Australasia. And I thought, well, this is a really good business model. So why don't we be a sales training business with a HR back end, right? And so that was the plan. So we bought into this license to use their products. And what happened was the Rudd government was elected, Fair Work came in, and all of a sudden the business took off, right? So within the first 3 years, we were Telstra small business finalists, under 10 staff, because we just grew and grew and grew and grew and grew because there was just so much supply and demand at the time of confusions of other business owners. So, Lorraine, my wonderful wife, who's my partner today, she said, business partner, wife, 33 years, she said to me, look, I'll back you, because I was scared going into business. I know I was good with the mouth and I know I was good on the dance floor, if I can say that, and running the training, but I was scared about the back end, like things like the marketing and the process and everything like that. So, and we become just unified straight away. The first few years, I don't know what was easier, or harder, I should say, the first few years of marriage or the first few years in business, because we certainly had our blues, right? But we've worked it out. And I think that's the thing. And then what I did do is I used a lot of my clients that I had or built relationships with over the journey in the office technology world to actually trial my training programs with them, and the way it went. And so back when when I finished up in the office technology world, I was the major account manager of Victoria for Konica Minolta, the dealer network, who I really collaboratively well with. These guys are our clients today, because they used to say to me, Colin, you should go into your own business. You should, we'll pay for you to come to Kalgoorlie or Coffs Harbour, and you can come and train our team. And we still look after those clients today, 17.5 years on. I'm so grateful for, Warren Moffat over there in Kalgoorlie. They don't use me for the training, but they still retain the HR services. And I guess that's the model, Sean, is we built a model that could create a retainer income, which was the outsourced HR services. And then the cream is the training that goes on top. So that was part of the process. And, you've been in business a long time. What happens is, my philosophy is if 3 different customers ask for the same thing, we need to start to develop a product around that. So it was 2017, I think it was, where I went and learned how to become a chair, advisory board chair. Not a governance, but advisory, because that's more sales, marketing, and people structure. I understand that, compliance is very big in the business, but I went and did a fairly intense course with that. And then went and did a trade mission over in China to learn about the China trade. Not that I've had anything to do with that, but along the way, it would become very, very, very helpful. And then that's sort of how we've then transitioned our business over that 17-year period. So you can't keep doing the same thing. You always got to invent yourself.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a good. This seems to be a common theme. I do want to circle back to a question that I've got for you, but just on that. Innovating and learning. So a theme that seems to come out in these discussions with entrepreneurs is that they're lifelong learners. And I think nearly every single person I've spoken to in this podcast has said that. And I think you've just touched on exactly that as right now,
Yeah. And what's really interesting is, like, I love speakers. I love all forms of speakers, and you see some great ones and, some real big keynote speakers. And that's my next step in my journey, is to become a keynote speaker and travel the world. And that process has already started.
Yeah.
But I think, there are a lot of people who go to a conference and they go and speak at a conference, and you see them, they front up, they do their gig and they leave.
Yeah.
But I'm the type of guy, it's like, if someone engages me for a conference, I want to be there from the very first time, the very top it starts, right till the very end, because all those speakers is part of my training, if that makes sense. And,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the last three, my opening statement on Tuesday when I spoke, I referred back to those speakers and how great they were and what were some of their key messages. And I can tell you, there's been incredible people where I would kill to be, to have the profile that these guys have got, but it's already happening. So if that sort of makes sense. So becoming a keynote speaker is like starting a business all over again. Like, I feel like I'm back to 17 years ago and I've got to reinvent myself and stuff like that, but it's working. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But training is everything. So reading books. I try my hardest to read a book. I'm always trying to learn something, and the great thing about the work that we do in this business, particularly me, is we go into so many different various industries, and you pick up some brilliant ideas of, that's a great idea of that industry, and you transfer that into another industry, and it just works.
Yeah, absolutely, that's fascinating. If I go back, so I'll go back to that question I had. So let's go back 17 years to when you started the business. What, if anything, but what would you do differently back then if you could go back and talk to yourself 17 years ago? Is there anything you'd say, yeah, you know what, I would have done this differently to start with? It would have just made life easier.
I think, look, we put a bit of a business plan together, I think, and I think after about 6 months into the business, we were on a good journey, but I think what I would have done differently, and we did do it, we engaged a business coach to come and just try and, be the referee of Lorraine and myself, just try and get us, more granular together and what our strategy was. So what would I do differently? In many ways, Sean, I'd probably say, we got good advice from an accountant. I think probably what I would do is I would probably try and set up an advisory board first before I opened the business up, right? So getting somebody like, for an example, a good accountant, a good lawyer, a good financial planner, because you're part of the mix as well, a good business manager, a bank manager or something like that. And we did have that, 17 years ago, you'd go into a branch of a Westpac bank and there'd be a business banker there that would really take you under his wing and stuff like that. So we did do that, but I probably would accelerate that more. And one of the other things that this coach got me to do was intense training. So when we very first started, I only worked 4 days a week. 1 day a week I was studying. So I was studying, at the time, Cert 4 training assessment, Diploma of Management, Advanced Diploma of Management. So again, we bought into this HR and we went through an academy and all that sort of stuff. But, you learn the business knowledge as you go, if I can say, and having that support network. Most people who go into business, their support network are their family and friends who probably don't own a business, and that's not good advice. So I think, look, one of the things that I was very grateful for was the relationships that I built with that dealer network in the office technology industry. And because you're selling office technology to business owners, you really get to ask what worked well, what didn't work well, what was your journey. So I did have a lot of that inside information. We did everything like we did a launch of the business. I remember we launched a business. I went and joined, network groups, BNI Network International, Business Network International, Club 3004. I remember when we did our very first conference as a business, we had 22 people in the room, and of the 22 people, 18 of them were people from networks and family and friends to pretend that we were bigger than what we were. But we picked up our first few clients from that, and it was really, really good. So again, I sit back, what would I do differently? There's not much. I probably would have spent a bit more time, maybe that 6-month lead up to getting that sound advice first before I launched it. But look, I had that business plan written in my own way 2 years before I actually went into business, because I consulted with some of the colleagues that I worked with who I really trusted, and they were happy doing what they're doing, and some of them are still in that industry today, and good luck to them. But I absolutely love what I do now and don't regret the decision I made. I can assure you of that.
Yeah. So it's interesting because one of my questions is the value of advice. What's been the value of advice to you? And I think you've basically just answered that question. So I think two things, and tell me if I've got this wrong, but I think two things you've just said is that maybe to get that support group / advisor group / mentor group almost around you sooner rather than later. So I'm saying this for people who are maybe thinking about starting out in business, for example, listening in, is to get that network in play as soon as you can. And you just touched on sort of maybe spending a little bit of extra time to launch. Like you might have spent a bit of extra time was it to get that network in place maybe before you launched?
I wish I had done the training before.
Yeah, okay.
I launched the business, right? So that's the because when we went bought into HR Coach, there was an academy, there was training on all that sort of stuff. But, that certification, I think is important, that's probably the thing that I would have done. And I think, in today, what I probably would ask, in today is, people tell you what you should do, but I'm more about tell me what I shouldn't do, right? So I think that's where that sound advice comes in.
Yes.
Like most business people going to business don't realize that business is going to own you, right? Unless you do something about it to own it, right? So when you start out in business, it absolutely owns you. It takes over your life.
Yes.
And, we had 2 young kids at the time, and if we traveled, they came with us, right? So, and we made sure it's very important that we did some holidays, and set that up. So we have a timeshare in Bali. I go to Bali every year, but, with our kids, we would always go to Bali to get out of Australia, just to have a week and a half together and do fun stuff, right? So again, so I think that's, you've really got to, get those foundations right. And I coach this now, right? So, but more, we don't sort of much coach startups. It's more they're established and they want to get to that next level, that good to great moment to come through. Yeah.
So would you also say then that, a piece of advice, so not something you would change, but a piece of advice for someone listening would be that, you do have to understand, the grit that's required to be a business owner, but also making sure you create space and time for your family, obviously.
100%, and that's a big one. So what I say is you need to have sheer determination, right? Like sheer determination and high resilience, right? And Sean, ballroom dancing taught us that when we were going for those lessons, the practice, drill, rehearse, that did. And, you do martial arts. I know that. So again, that is that is about, that's resilience. That is all about concentration. So if your mind is not right to set up a business, then don't go into business. And I think the big one that we see is the pressure of the families. So the husband and wife. So the husband's got the passion, desire to do something, or the wife's got the passion, desire to do something, but the husband and wife or the brother and sister or whatever, they're not in sync. Yeah. And that's something I'm so grateful for, and something I cherish with my wife, like you do with your wife, is they just understand, right, and back you 100%. So I think that's the battle, and that's the foundations. And the third party is the canceller of that. So my grandparents were in business. They had 22 odd businesses over their career. My grandfather used to say a quote, it's never bad for too long. You always get through it. And I say that all the time, like, you've got to challenge yourself. And, I love Richard Branson. So he's somebody I follow, read books on, everything. But a quote that he uses is that if your dreams and aspirations don't scare you, then they're not big enough. And that is what business is all about, like taking the punt and just doing it and ride that storm. So when it's good, it's really good. When it's shit, it is shit. And it's the roller coaster ride of running a business, but it's about getting that mojo and that team right. And once you've got it right, it's the greatest feeling of all time, and you can do things. Yeah. That's why we're in business.
Yeah, absolutely. So on that, about being in business, sort of why you do what you do, I think maybe the question out of that is, in this scenario with you, is like, how would you ever envisage yourself going to work for someone else again?
I couldn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't. Right. And there's no way in the world like that, like I probably, so when you work for an industry for 22 years and everyone says, we'll see you back in 6 months, that was a motivator for me. And,
it's like, so, no, you won't.
You won't. Yeah. And now, and a lot of them say, oh, geez, you're so lucky. And I was like, bullshit. There's no luck in this. This has been hard grind, hard work, but, and it's good, but you got to surround yourself with positive people, and you don't tell your family and your friends everything you do, because they're the first tall poppy syndrome to knock you down or question things. So you just go and do it. And you have to have that, what I call that soulmate, or that partner in the business. You're on the same page, and that advice support that verifies it. So, and I'm massive on, and I train this, with businesses. If the accountant is not holding you accountable, change your accountant. Right? You don't want yes people in helping you run the business. You want people who are as driven, as passionate as you are, that question you, question. Because if you're thinking, and want to make decisions, then you need to be questioned. And I think, I go back to, don't tell me what to do. Tell me what I shouldn't be doing. Ask me questions and really, really nail it with me. So, and that's transformed our business big time. So, yeah.
That's an interesting one, and I won't, because I'm here to speak with you today, not about me. But I think that's an interesting. It's a tricky one to balance sometimes with advisors, that you do want them to question you, because if you're a solo operator, especially when you kick off, if your sounding board might literally just be your partner, but I think it can be difficult to get the balance between someone that's questioning and holding you to account and that person becoming a dead weight.
100%.
Yeah.
I totally get that. And I think, look, where I was lucky is Lorraine was a PA to a managing director. Right. So she was like for a long time, like us, we got married at 23, no one gets married at 23 these days, but we got married at 23, and, we were ambitious people to climb that corporate ladder. She was in travel when I met her, and she ended up being a PA to a managing director, a wonderful person. So when we went into business, she understood what I had to do. Right. She saw how hard I worked. And, we were very goal driven. Like, we paid our first house off in 5 years. Like, we just chased the work. We had a dance studio. We worked at nighttime. We worked our asses off during the day.
Yeah.
And that's what we did to set ourselves up. And I think, going back to that time, she never saw me for the first 6 months. I was at any networking event, any speaking opportunity to plug our business. I traveled Australia, so, when we got into HR Coach, the theme was you become a lifestyle business.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to be a lifestyle business. I want to be a corporate business,
Yeah.
So again, and we would be one of their top 3 partners, if not the biggest partner today. And I feel that, but we started out that way, we never sat back, they say have plan A, plan B. There's no plan B. There's just plan A and make it work. And you might modify plan A, but we're not going to retreat. And again, that goes back to if you've got a partnership where you're both on the same page, it'll excel. If you've got that anchor, that brank, then that's where it makes it happen. And we see it. We've seen businesses fail. We've seen, split ups of partnerships and all that sort of stuff. And the foundations weren't right at the start, and that's pretty much what we're saying here. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know in my role, and I suspect you'll the same thing, and I want to sort of keep scratching away a little bit at this theme on advice, and being a sounding board. So even in your role as a chair and in my role, as a financial advisor specializing with business owners, there is a fine line between accountability though and absolutely just putting up hurdles all the time, if you know what I mean. So when you were sort of saying about accountability and questioning, and I think that's really important. But I know at one point I engaged an external advisor to bit of a board of advice for our business early on. And in the end, I had to let that person go because I actually found they hold me back. So their idea of questioning and probing was almost like to the point of me second guessing everything and sort of not doing anything, if you know what I mean. The minute I let that person go, we took off. So, like you would find in your role that you've got to balance that as well I would expect.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that's really interesting, right, is, when you're starting out in business, you're trying to find people, you're trying to provide advice, but, another saying of my grandfather was, don't take advice somebody who's more screwed up than you. And I think that's the key, right? I think that's the key. Like when we're talking to business owners, we're talking to a business owner at the moment. We're about to pick up some business, I hope, soon. And they're talking to an advisor, and the advisor has come from major corporate. Not that I got anything wrong with that, but he's talking to a small business owner. It's like he's not paid a payroll. He's not gone through the point where he's got to rip 40 grand out of his home loan or mortgage or advance payment and put it back into the business to get it back again. Like that when we're talking about getting advice, it's always about, show me that you've actually walked in the shoes that I want to go in. And I think that is part of, as you go into business, you start to work that out pretty quickly, that the advice that I want to get is somebody who's actually walked my shoes, right? And I think that's, and going back to, your comment, I've had advisors that have come in that have given advice, and I've thought to myself, I've questioned it. And again, I say to many clients who come to us, we may not be the right person for you, right? And I'm as bold to say that if you do some form of strategic plan or strategy session with me, I'll be in and out within 3 to 4 years, right? So, and then you're going to need to go and find somebody else to take you to that, because you can't be the same voice. And we've just picked up a client. So 7 years they've had a business advisor for, and it becomes stale, So, I'm a realist, and I think what's good is I put that out there straight away. We'll get you going, no question at all. But we'll get you to a point where you build leaders in your team, that you're more inefficient. You now need to go and source something else, and maybe go and set up a board. Now, so Sean, I went and learned how to do it. Doesn't necessarily mean that I actually do it. I don't facilitate on advisory boards. What I become is the facilitator of building an advisory board for a business, and bringing in a financial planner, an accountant, and a lawyer. Some companies have got it set up very, very well. Some companies that don't. So it's important to get that sound advice of what you need.
You just touched on something there as well around being very clear with your potential clients or your prospective clients that, this is how it'll work. And this is, I will be in and out. Like what you've got there is an ideal client avatar is what I'll say. So you sort of say, I know what I'm going to bring to the table for you. And then when I get you to a point, you actually you will no longer be my ideal client. And I think that's something that new business owners maybe don't do so well, which is to define who exactly they're trying to work with. Is that fair?
It's got to be a good fit. It's got to be a good fit.
You've got that nutted out is what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, we have. And basically, and that's always been the case, Sean. So when they engage us, they really use all of the whole suite of what we do, right? That's how we know it works. And I'll talk to you a bit about COVID in a sec, right? We know it works, but those clients that I did work with 17 odd years ago, they still use our HR services and our HR team, whether it be ad hoc or on some sort of retainer level or whatever. They've never left us, right? And yeah, so it's a good feeling. We still look after the very first client that we sold to. So when Lorraine and I headed home from the academy from Brisbane, I met a business owner next door to me, on the seat next to me, and Leader Projects was the company that he has, and Frank, and I told him this is what I do, and I pretty much sold my services to him on the plane on the way home. I went and saw him the next week, and he was our very first client, and his check is still up on my wall of that very first check that we got, which was for $1,485, including GST. But they still use us of today. So I sit back and look at, that's a good to great moment. And that's our mission of Key Business Advisors. Mission's good, taking a business good to great, as per the book, Jim Collins, build that level 5 leadership. And so I think it's, you also got to smell the roses along the way, look at what you've done well and learn from what you don't do so well.
Yeah, absolutely. What values are important in business, in your business or in business in general?
So that's probably most of the work that I do is around mission, vision, purpose, and values. And so we're, what we do, which I think makes us unique, is when we do some form of strategy with the business, we talk about that, and it's the first thing my HR team go and do. And we incorporate, values, mission, vision, purpose, and values into everyone's position description, because behavior is a hard thing to change in companies. And if people are not part of the vision, they're not part of the values, then I think it's important. And it's easy to fire somebody, right? So, if you've got values of integrity or trust or accountability or commitment or whatever they may be, and it's really meaning for you, then I think it's great, And we look after the most amazing electrical firm up in Cobram, right? So majority of our work, Sean, if I can tell you, is not in actually Melbourne City, right? It's actually in regional areas throughout Australia, because we started most of the dealers from the office technology world came from regional areas. So their referrals have referred us to other regional-based businesses. But, we look after electrical business, and, one of their values is get shit done, right? Now, they're a bunch of Sparkies. There's 60 Sparkies. But that's the lingo of that business, right? They have wonderful values, but everyone understands get shit done. I'm on a time limit here. Time is money. And the way it's communicated from the top down is amazing. And you know what? As a young apprentice going in, I'm trained very, very early that part of my job role is to go in and do the very, very best job and get shit done. And I just think that's really, really good. So many businesses we go to don't have it, or they've got it and it's not on the wall, or it's not, they don't live and breathe it. And that's the difference between or I'll say an average performing business and a great business. And Richard Branson will tell you that. Richard Branson talks about, you look after your staff, they'll look after your customers. Get your staff ingrained into the way you want to run your business and what's important to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This is a question I ask everyone as well. So is entrepreneurship for everyone?
No, it's not for everyone, right? I'll tell you what is for everyone, a passion. So if you have a passion for something, you learn entrepreneurship, right? It'll sort you out very quickly. But if you are, and I'll go back to, what I call, personality profiling, just profiling. So if you're a person, if anyone's ever done it before, that is an extrovert type of person, that doesn't have core reluctance, has no fear, and a high risk taker, then, you will become an entrepreneur. I'm not saying a person who's introverted can't become an entrepreneur. They're just going to probably need a bit of help along the way to become that entrepreneur. So my answer to that question is, if you have a passion or drive, you follow your passion and you find people around you to help you on the journey until you become that entrepreneur, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's interesting because the answer's almost invariably no is the first answer. And then, and sometimes it remains no, but that's a really great answer in terms of, entrepreneurship can be learned if you want it.
That's right. Yeah. And I think that goes back to the soundboard and everything like that. Like, there are people that have got brilliant ideas and, what is it? 83% of people in Australia go to work not loving their job. Well, how can you grow a business if that's the case, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I always say, go do something you're passionate about, something you're really motivated about. And then if you go and join a company, it's up to them to keep that motivation, drive, direction, pathway, continuing forward with those values and purpose. Yeah. And vision.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. With the business, you've sort of touched on it, but what are the goals for key business advisors, say, over the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you envisage taking the business? I'm going to ask about you personally next, actually. So just to give you a heads up.
So great business. So, okay. So right now, if I just talk about COVID, right? So, because that'll help with the process, right? So what happened with COVID, I loved what I did and we were very busy and I was working very much in the business during COVID, like there's no tomorrow. When COVID happened, I lost $500,000 worth of travel, in training, facilitating and stuff like that. And I never got started for another 18 months after that because no one had any money, because of what happened to COVID. So it was that moment where we started to work on, strategy and more strategy, even more so. But what I did do for that 13-week period is I did a free webinar, Survive and Thrive webinar. They're still on our website today. And every Monday I just pumped out to try and survive on the webinar. And I interviewed our clients, tell me a bit about your business, give us a plug about yourself. What are you doing during COVID? How's it impacted your business? What's one piece of advice you can give from somebody? What happened out of that was we had 800 people download stuff off our website. 200 people joined our CRM wanting our services. So all of a sudden, we just had this massive influx. And then what I worked out really quickly was the businesses had really good communication and a strategy and a pathway to get out of it. They really went well, and people who didn't go so well. So if I can say what I did prior to that I believed in, but after COVID, I truly endorse what I do and believe in it. So that really helped set up our business. So we went through a patch where, like everyone, we needed staff, more staff because we were growing and it was very hard to recruit. But in the last couple of years, we've got the greatest team of all time. So I'm in a position right now. We've outgrown our building. We own our building, and again, that's part of advice as well. So buy your premises, get your super fund, get what's up in a super fund, invest money. But So what happened? So where we're at right now is we've outgrown. We've just signed a lease to move to 320 square meters that will hold up to 20 people comfortably. Right. So right now we've got 12 odd staff in this box of our business that we're in, which would comfortably probably sit about 7 or 8. So we're a bit tight. And so we actually take possession on the 1st of October. And we're going to develop a place of work that is really, really great and fun to be in, right? So that's part of the journey. And then the other part of the journey is building that leadership team, which I've already got in the HR space, right? So Alison, Chris, Gina, and the team, that is just going magnificent. That's a business inside our own business that just runs and operates and goes beautifully. And then on the business side of things, I'm actually interviewing somebody next Tuesday night to come into the business. I've already got a succession plan in my business to come in. So our journey in the next 3 to 5 years is to double the size of our business and really go to that next level. So, we have a full-time marketing person in our business. We engage with, web developers, all the above. Like, we're really big on doing that. And I've really got a good layer of people, if I can say, that are in their 30s, early 40s. They are the future of our business, the up and coming. So we're doing our very, very best to empower them along at the same time. So where I'll be in 5 years' time, we'll be traveling, I say 3 years' time, traveling the world, speaking. And what will happen is, and it's already happening now, is I bring the vacuum of the work into the business. So people ring up who want me, and this is where the problem I've got right now. So I've just come back off a 3-day conference. There's not 2 of me, but I've got to build at least somebody who's 80% to what I'm all about. And then they bring in their own personality of their own 20%, 25%. So that's where we'll be. So we'll grow, and I'll have an accountant, a lawyer, and the right advice to push me to make that happen. So I'm a person that puts it out there. So so that's what we're doing with the business. And you're going to ask me the question personally, so I'll let you ask me that question. So go for it.
No, what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask you that question, but so I'm big on with my clients. I say what we're trying to get our clients to a position of is to be doing what they want to do, when they want to do it, with the people they want to do it with. That's our mantra around here. Okay. Yeah. What I also say is you have to have your business exit ready in order to do that sometimes, or sale ready. And I'm just homing in on it now because you just used one of my magic words of succession. So what I'm hearing in short form of what you're moving towards is as much as possible, almost trying to make yourself, you won't be redundant, but almost redundant in your current role. Is that sort of
100%? Okay. All right. So, so here it is, because the work that I do, we have clients that are still working in their 80s.
Yeah.
Right. But they have other people who run their business, and they're making a mozza. They made more money being retired than they have when they were in the business, right? So that's my goal. My goal is to build a team. Now, you've got 2 young kids, a beautiful son, looks like your father, and a beautiful daughter that looks like your wife. Yeah. You do look like your father, but your son's a spitting image of him.
Yeah.
But, I've got 2 daughters in my business, and right now they're out, doing what they want to do and venture in life, and they're building their own careers. So I want to set it up to a point where if they decide that they want to come into the business, and I've had that conversation with them, I will train them like there is no tomorrow. I will prepare them to go and do a business degree, whatever the HR degree, whatever they decide to do. I will set them up for success.
Yeah.
But they'll start in the bottom of the business and work their way through, right? Which is what we coach other businesses.
Yeah.
So I don't really want to offload KBA. And part of my strategy is that if they don't want it, then I think what's important is, how we do that. And that will probably most likely go towards the team that actually work within the business, because they're as passionate as what I am about my business as what they are, and it's a place of home for them. So I think it's important, Sean. I think what we're very good at, and I coach this, is you do a two-year plan with a 3-year vision. You can't have a 5-year plan now because the market's just changed. Yeah. You break it down every quarter.
Well, on that, Colin, sorry to jump in, but even now we sort of talk about, we don't write 80, 100-page plus business plans anymore. No. That's the old MBA style sort of thing, like you nearly, if you can fit it on 1 or 2 pages, you're going really well type thing, not.
Well, that's right. Yeah. So
I jumped in there, but it was.
No, you're right. You're right. So you do that, and then you showcase the team of the plan, and you work with the plan, and that creates the pathway out. So, and then you'll get yourself to a business where it's really going like it's like at the moment, touch wood, our business is hammering along. It's not just chugging along; it's hammering along. So what we do is, we've always done this. We always take our team away in July and go to a 2-day offsite, right? And we work on our business, right? And And then what we do is we set our goals for the next 12 months. And then every quarter we reflect back on how we're tracking to those goals and where people are in it. And I bring that into like performance plans and all the stuff that goes with it. So I feel that, that keeps you, the owner, accountable, and it keeps your team accountable, and it takes them on the journey. But, we had a business that came to us early on in the day. They were a client of ours for a long time, and he wanted to sell his business, and their accountant recommended that they engage somebody to build some structure in their business for us. So we got the gig, right? And so we did things like mission, vision, purpose, and values. We built an org chart. We put roles and responsibilities in place, policies, procedures, process, all the above. And all of a sudden, this business is making money. They never sold it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and that's what I said, before. I believed in what I did because, that was a trigger point. And that's what happens in business. You go through trigger points.
Yeah.
But after COVID, I really believe in what we do, and we practice what we preach. We say to many of our clients, come in, we'll showcase, ask my team any question you want to know about the business. They will tell you exactly where it's heading and what we're doing, because that communication is just piece is so important.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you for that. All right, here we go. So what's next for you, Colin Wilson, personally?
Okay. Well, before I do that, in partnerships, I just want to say my wife runs a career business, right? So, so as we build your business, you got to give people things to do, right? So, and before I go on to that next part, I think what's important too, Sean, is giving back. Like I will say, as part of the education process, is go and join a couple of boards. I'm on a board that raises money for kids out of home care, foster care. They're called Tee Up for Kids. It's through the medium of golf. I love my golf, and I've helped another business, which is Keely's Cause, which is autistic kids or kids with special needs or disability to raise money for iPads. Like that teaches you a lot. But there was a time in my life where I was on a massive downer. I had some people leave me, start up against me, and I thought I was hard done by. But then I went and did some voluntary work and helping some young people, get into the workforce. And, we built a business out of that through volunteering, which is called Kiba Careers. And my wife runs that. So she's got that purpose over there, and I've got the purpose of Key Business Advisors. So, and it's a mini version of our business, but, the journey that she's on is now to find that person to come in and start running that business for her. And she's out doing the public speaking, and she was never a public speaker. So when you asked that question before about entrepreneurship, she had no entrepreneurship in her, but she is an entrepreneur 101 now because she's learnt how to do it. Yeah. But for me, the next stage for me is to write a book, and that gets published. And I'm not just writing one book. I've got it lined up to write the next 3 to 5 books, and I've gone through the whole process. And that is about, the book's going to be called Business Beyond Tomorrow. I'm setting up a Business Beyond Tomorrow website, a Colin Wilson website, which will then remove me a little bit out of KBA to have my own identity. So in that event that, we sell the business or whatever it may be, I've got my own identity still. I think that's part of planning. That's part of that planning process. But the whole idea of that, and again, people write books, but Sean, I've paid a lot of money to have a professional coach hold me accountable to write a book. Most people write a book over 2 to 3 years. Mine will be done within 6 months, right? And then that's just how I operate, right? So again, I think, you pay people to hold you accountable to do what you need to do. But my journey is to be an international speaker, and then creating and helping businesses out there. And I think I've done my apprenticeship. We're 18 years in February next year.
Yeah.
And
it's a solid apprenticeship.
It is a solid apprenticeship. And I've just done a podcast like this with a guy from the UK who his name's John Adams, and he's taken me to the UK with him next year. So again, that is just part of the journey, part of the process. And I think, sometimes people get stale in their business. They fall in a bit of a rut, and you just got to keep reinventing yourself, reinventing what you're doing. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to do. So
the name of the book again?
It's Business Beyond Tomorrow. It's all registered. It's trademarked. Yeah, so it'll be Your Business Beyond Tomorrow, what it will be called. Yeah. And then it'll be Your Leadership Beyond Tomorrow, Your Sales Beyond Tomorrow. So that's the journey. Your Franchise Beyond Tomorrow, and just watch this space. Yeah,
awesome. And expected to be published when?
February next year. So we're going to start pre-selling books as of November, end of November. People will be able to pre-buy the book. And I've already got a few associations that are keen to distribute that to their membership. So I think that's very exciting, and I think that's what keeps you young, right? It's true. Like we go and see a lot of tired business owners, and believe me, I'm tired because I work hard, no different to you and every other person listening to this podcast. But what's amazing, and my team say to me, I don't know how you do it, but you do manage to get up and kick on and keep going. And that's that part of that sheer determination and high resilience. So you follow your dreams, mate. That's what you have to do. Life is too short.
Yeah, spot on. It is indeed. Colin Wilson, that is a great note to leave it on. I really appreciate your time to join me on this episode, and you've given us a heap of insights to take away, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
I love it. As in, people will hear that and see that, right? Yeah. And you're a champion, Sean. And as I said to you, like we've reconnected after so many years, like 30 odd years, I think, or 40 odd years, probably. 40 odd years. Well, I think we worked it out 42 years. I think we worked it out when we had bites a week.
That's it.
So I met Sean when I think I was 9 and he was like 4.
Yeah.
Something like that. 6. Something like that. 6. Yeah. 6. Yeah, 6. Yeah. And plenty of history back there. And it's just absolutely great feeling to reconnect. And you're a champion, mate. And love what you do. And as you know, I'm already putting you forward to some of the organisations that I work with. So all the best to you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, Colin. I really appreciate it. Thanks very much. And that's all for this episode of Origin to Ambition. Thanks for tuning in. To make sure you don't miss our next conversation, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen in. For more information, you can visit us at dominiumcapital.com.au, and we'll see you next time.